Girl, brains was out the window. We left them at the house. What's because of the color of my skin?
Reminiscing about the times we had.
Hey y'all, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Erica. This is the first time seeing me. Today's video, I'm finally going to be talking about my pregnancy journey, my labor and delivery, and dealing with postpartum afterwards. So if this is something that y'all want to see, just keep watching. And if you want more content like this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what other content y'all want to see from me. So to start off with my pregnancy journey, the crazy thing about it was she was planned but not really. Me and my husband had been trying for a couple months, wasn't nothing shaking, and then like we were like, you know what, let's just chill out. The next time if you take one, if it's negative, then you know it's cool. We're just gonna chill out, enjoy our life, you know, finish building and stuff like that. About 3 days later, I'm like, I think we need a test. It wasn't like I didn't have any particular feelings. I just was like, let me just see, because at the same time, my cycle was real messed up that year. Like, every month it was coming 1 to 5 days later. Like, it kept, you know, it was just off. So that's what prompted me to tell him to go get a pregnancy test. Yeah, that was about 3 days later. Took the test. Okay, so when I took the test, I went into the bathroom, you know, peed in a cup, whatever. I flipped the pregnancy test over on the counter because I'm like, I don't want to see it, you know, I don't want to see it. At that point, like, within those 3 days, and you know, just over time, we wasn't trying to put pressure on it, so the pressure of having one wasn't as big. The impact of getting negative tests wasn't as big. So within that time period, like, I had time to like really sit back and be like, okay, well, if this is not doing this, let's just work on this, let's do other stuff or whatever. So, you know, in my head, I was already prepared to not have one, you know what I'm saying? Like, even in that little short amount of time or whatever, I was, you know, like, okay, I'm gonna wait. Yeah, that's what I did. I flipped it over on the counter. I walked out, set the timer. When it was done, went back in, flipped it over. I think I still have the picture of the test, but it was positive, and I want to say that was like September 14th of 2018. Found out I was pregnant, you know, went to the doctors and everything, had to stop certain little things that I was doing. Yeah, like the second, like that first or second day after I found out, it was like the symptoms immediately started to hit, more so with throwing up. I couldn't keep nothing down, not water, nothing. Like, it got to a point, because I was waking up throwing up every day. And it got to a point where I was leaning over the toilet. I'm like, I was crying. I'm like, I just want to stop throwing up. I just want to eat. My throwing up didn't stop until probably the 3rd trimester altogether. But in between that, certain things just still wasn't rocking with me. Like, I could not eat, what was it? Milk. My body, she didn't want the milk or whatever it was, she didn't want it. Pickles, still can't eat pickles to this. Well, I'll eat, I can't even say I really eat pickles like that no more, to be honest with you, because yeah, it just turned me off. It turned me off when I threw it up and it was like chunky. Like, you know, you can't chew and puree a pickle. So imagine what that felt like coming back up. I'm like, oh no ma'am, I'm not eating that again. Yeah, it was more so dairy, milk wise, that I couldn't eat. I was craving crawfish, like just boiled seafood. Mama, hey, much. And then I was living in California at the time, and they don't know how to do, you know, they don't know how to do seafood boils and stuff like New Orleans. So, and then they was charging so much. But anyway, I got it like 3 times, and I was like, you know what, I'm good off it. It was on to the next phase of whatever I wanted to eat. Definitely shrimp was on my list. Like, everything had to have shrimp in it. Broccoli and cheese, I used to be up at, God bless you mama, I used to be up at like 1 o'clock in the morning fixing broccoli and cheese on the phone with my cousin because she was pregnant at the same time as me. That's a story for another time. But I didn't have any like weird pregnancy cravings, I don't think. But see those patty pies, those sweet potato pies, girl, I would sit up there, I would slice like 3 pieces off the whole pie, you know, like just, you know, one day or early in the morning I might go get a piece, then later on I might get a piece, and later on I might get a piece. But see, the house I was staying in, we had upstairs and downstairs, and I'm like, I'm not about to, I was getting bigger, like I was bigger at this point. I'm like, I'm not about to keep going up and down these stairs. I used to bring the whole pie upstairs and just eat it in bed. It got to a point where I could drink milk again. So I used to wake up in the mornings and have about 2 bowls of cereal watching Hannah Montana or something, and then go right back to sleep. I was also working a little bit, so that was a rough thing for me because, like I said, in the beginning, when I found out in September that I was pregnant, I had just started working at the Home Depot in California. So I probably was working there for like 2 weeks before I found out I was pregnant. Again, like I said, the throwing up, it hit me hard, especially early in the morning. And it seemed like a lot of my shifts was like 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I used to be going home and throwing up some more. One day I caught myself trying to stick it out. No, I'm gonna go home. Matter of fact, I passed out too right before I found out I was pregnant. Like maybe a couple days, same situation. Before I was getting out the shower, and like, well, I was in the shower and I just started feeling myself, like I felt like I wanted to faint, like my body was just getting weak. So I'm like, let me get out the shower. And I was trying to dry off, and then I'm like, no, let me just go out and get some air. And as soon as I opened up the bathroom door and took like 1 or 2 steps, I passed out. And my dumb self, I played it off and laughed. So my husband probably thought that I was just, you know, he probably thought I was playing, but I really passed out. And that probably was because my hormone levels and stuff was fluctuating because I was pregnant. Yeah, I ended up being diagnosed with the whatever hyperemesis, which is like the excessive throwing up and stuff like that. I lost 10 pounds from September to January. I lost about 10 pounds, 10, 11 pounds. And then I ended up gaining it back towards the end of my pregnancy. But then they was like telling me that I was gaining it too fast. So which one? Y'all want me to do? Y'all want me to gain it? Y'all want me to lose it, or y'all want me to gain it? You know, I was taking vitamins and stuff to help with the nausea and everything. Which medicine, it was like the medicine, it was multiple pills that you could just go get from the, you know, from the pharmacy at like Walmart or whatever. But it was making me sleepy, and I'm like, I can't, especially with me going to work, I'm like, I can't function. So those didn't last too long, and eventually it got better with the throwing up and stuff. And maybe one day, like if it's some stuff that I didn't mention in this part of like the pregnancy, you know, I'll probably have timestamps in my description if y'all don't, you know, if y'all want to skip ahead and go to certain parts. I may do a Q&A one day when I get a certain amount of subscribers. And if y'all want to ask questions about that I may have not mentioned in this video, y'all can let me know. So now I guess we can go into the labor and delivery part of my pregnancy. I had been to the doctor maybe twice. No, it was about 2 or 3 times on false alarms. It was more so like stomach pain that I was getting towards the end of my pregnancy, and like every time I would go to the hospital, they were like, oh, nothing wrong, you know, you probably just dehydrated, da 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 da. At some point leading up to her last, like the last couple of weeks I had left, it was one incident where I didn't feel her. Well, it was them at first. I went for a regular checkup, and they ended up putting me on a monitor because, you know, to catch her heart rate and stuff like that. And at some points they wasn't catching it, so they'll come in and bring apple juice to try to get her riled up and stuff like that. So when I wouldn't feel her at home moving around at certain times, I would get something sweet, like I started drinking apple juice a lot, or just something sweet to kind of get her active. For the most part, the girl had her own schedule. Didn't care what time I was going to sleep, none of that. She had her own schedule, and the crazy thing about it is it's still kind of like that. Like, she would get real active at night when I was pregnant. Like, that's when I would feel most of her kicking and stuff, and she's still like that now. No matter what, she could be up all day, and sometimes she'll try to take her nap. This is just a little side note, but sometimes she'll try to take her nap at like 7, 8 o'clock. Like, how you try to take a nap at 7, 8 o'clock? You should be going to sleep. And sometimes she would stay up all day and still not lay down until 11, 12 o'clock. Like, we got to get on the schedule. So after, you know, going to these false alarms and stuff, it's about, first of all, let me rewind again. My original due date was May 17th, okay? Her original due date to be here was May 17th. Girl, it was one of them appointments I went to. My last appointment that I went to, my OB checked my cervix, and I think I was only like half a centimeter dilated. And this was maybe around, it was around the 17th. Like, it was around the 17th because I was at that stage where I was going every week. You know, like once a week or whatever. That week before, I was only like a half a centimeter dilated, and she was like, oh, you know, if you're not, because I started asking about like the procedure for being induced and stuff like that, which I wasn't really trying to get induced. I wanted her to come on her own. I'm gonna get to that part. You know, go home, because she was like, you know, if you're not by that time, come in, whatever, and we'll talk to you about, like, basically she was saying my next appointment, if I hadn't dilated or hadn't had her by then we'll talk about being induced. She was like, but I think you're gonna have her by then, da 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 da. Well, my next appointment was for the 21st, basically in between that time, like basically when I went to the doctor, because I always set my appointments on either Mondays or Fridays. So it probably was a Friday or something like that. Yeah, so the 21st rolled around. I'm laying in bed. My husband, he gets up for work at what, 5 something in the morning, like 5:30, and I usually get up behind him and I'll go use the bathroom, maybe go fix a bowl of cereal or fix some quick breakfast for both of us, and then I'll go lay back down. So that particular morning, I woke up, went use the bathroom, but as I was going to the bathroom around the bed, soon as I hit the corner of the bed, I felt like a stinging contraction. And I'm like, hold on, you know, hold on right quick. And he was like, you good? I'm like, yeah, I think, you know, it was just, I'm thinking it was a Braxton Hicks, you know, not really thinking, okay, this is the day that I'm going to be going to labor. I go ahead and use the bathroom. I ate a bowl of cereal, and then I ended up going back to sleep. And around that time, it was about 7 o'clock. No, it was about 5:30, so I went back to sleep about 6:30. Woke up again around 8 because my stomach was hurting, but it wasn't to a point where I was like, okay, I can't, you know, it was bearable. Wasn't nothing serious to me, so I went back to sleep. Then maybe around 9 o'clock, I got up again. It wasn't so bad, you know, still went back to sleep. 11 o'clock hit, and then I was like, oh no, you know, I can't. My appointment was probably at like 2 o'clock, I think. I'm like, yeah, my stomach is hurting a little bit too much. So I got up, you know, was getting my outfit together that I was about to wear, and I was going to get in the tub just to, well, actually, because it was only like 12 o'clock or 11, 12, and my appointment wasn't until 2, I went and got in the tub and soaked just to try to see if the pain was going to subside a little bit. And baby, it was getting harder. I was counting my contractions. They was coming like what, every 6 minutes. Yeah, they was coming like every 6 minutes, lasting like a minute. It was like they was getting more and more intense. So I called my doctor and was like, you know, this is how I'm feeling, this is what the contractions, how long they lasting and stuff. I'm like, should I just still come into y'all, or should I just go straight to the hospital? She was like, you could go ahead, head straight to the hospital, and I'll let, you know, the doctor know. My bag and her bag had already been packed since probably a whole month or 2 prior to us going to the hospital. So I called her dad, because I'm like, you know, I'm like, my stomach hurting, is probably that time, you know. I'm like, do you want me to just go ahead and pack you a quick bag? He like, yeah. And he was on his way. I'm still in the tub at this point though. I'm still in the tub. I'm scared to get out because the way the tub was, I would have to lift my leg up like I would have to lift my leg up to get out. So I'm like, let me just pace myself and take my time. I get out. The contractions, they starting to come harder, to the point where when I was digging in the basket for my clothes, I just had to lean over and let it pass. So by the time he got there, I was dressed, ready to go, walk out the door and stuff like that, girl. It seemed like we was about 20-30 minutes away from the hospital. It seemed like we was hitting every bump on the way there, and I'm laughing, but I was laughing on the way there because I was nervous at the same time and trying not to think about the pain. Now, y'all may or may not know that when you're pregnant and stuff like that, I believe you could just, you know, get dropped off in the front. Us not thinking, we just like, okay, we just gonna park here and just go head upstairs, whatever. Like, we just, girl, brains was out the window. We left them at the house. We park in the garage. It wasn't far from the hospital. Like, it was across the street, but it was still a walk, feeling how I felt. Get out, we left the bags in the car, just go. Nobody in the hospital was like, okay, well, let me get this lady a wheelchair. Nobody. Like, y'all see that I'm getting a band to even go up on a maternity ward and stuff like that. Why would y'all not give me, was it because of the color of my skin? Was because of the color of my skin. Get the band. We go up to the maternity ward or whatever, where you have the babies and stuff. We get back there. It was a phone on the wall that opened up the doors or whatever, because we had to speak to somebody that was back there in order for them to open it. They finally open it, and we walking through, and I'm holding on to the railing on the side. I'm telling him, I'm like, you go up there and let them know that I, you know, like my name, my information and stuff like that. So, cause I'm gonna get there when I get there. Cause nobody still never bought me a wheelchair. They immediately put me in a room because so many other women had came in with contractions or was ready to have their baby and stuff like that. So the waiting room was full. So they immediately put me in a room and changed me up and stuff like that. And at this point, I was 4 days past my due date because, like I said, 17th had on the 21st. That was about, you know, 1:30 when we got to the hospital. They got me, you know, in my gown and in the bed and went to check in my cervix. And at this point, I was only like 1.5 centimeters. At that point, I hate that I go blank when I'm recording, but she was like, okay, when they checked me, and she was like, well, you're not 3 centimeters yet. Like, you're not 3 centimeters yet. And they was getting ready to send me home. It was like, you know, if you start feeling any other way or whatever, to come back. And at that point, I'm crying because, for one, I'm in pain. I'm 4 days overdue. Why would y'all send me home? Like, I don't care if it wasn't open at all. That means something else might need to happen, right? I'm crying because I'm like, oh no, y'all gonna get her up out of here today. Contractions coming, they not letting up at all. Like, it felt like I didn't even get a minute worth of, it felt like I didn't even get a minute worth of a break before another contraction came, and they were hard. So I was really trying not to go. I didn't want an epidural. I wanted to have her natural. I wanted to be in the squatting position, you know, so the natural force of gravity could pull her out. And because I feel like a lot of our back problems from pregnancy come from one carrying a whole child, and then the process of having a baby in the positions they bend our body up in to have a child and stuff like that, it could really cause some damage. And I'll get into that too. I think because this video is getting kind of lengthy, so I may end up doing a part 2 of my postpartum, dealing with postpartum depression and getting over it. Those will be like the same video. I didn't want to have an epidural or none of that like that. I wanted everything to be natural. But she was like, the lady was like, you know, she was like, I'll give you fentanyl to kind of ease your pain a little bit. I'm like, okay, cool. She gave me that, and I was able to take a little break and breathe a little bit. And this is from my perspective because I was in and out. Like, I was in and out during this whole process. So she gave it to me, and I think I remember I fell asleep the first time. But she did tell me that, because I think I asked for another dose. But she was like, they could only give me 2 doses, which that was fine with me. That she had already told me that. But she did say that the second dose is gonna wear off faster than the first one. She gave it to me. I ended up falling asleep again. I got a little rest. No, actually, I believe I was texting people. I was like texting people, letting them, updating them, and then I like go back to sleep. They kept coming in to reposition the heart monitor on my stomach because they kept missing her. Like at some point they couldn't hear her heartbeat. So yeah. At some points they couldn't hear her heartbeat, so they'll come in and reposition the monitor. And then they got to a point where they came in, it was like the same doctor, and then she came in like with another nurse. Well, it was the nurse I had from when I first got there, and then it was another nurse came in, and they were, you know, let me rewind back, because after the fentanyl wore off, I'm like, I'm gonna need something stronger, and I'm just gonna have to go ahead and get this epidural. That process of getting the epidural was really the worst. Like, I didn't like it. Yeah, like when you think back on it, it was kind of a fast process, but no, it wasn't at the same time, because like I keep saying, the way my contractions was coming and the way I was feeling them, at first the nurse had me, like she was standing in front of me and I was just holding her hands kind of like hunched over so he can see my spine. My contractions was coming at the same time, and every time he would put the needle right there, I would flinch up, or I would be holding onto her like hands real tight. So she ended up bringing over the cart that they bring your food on, and she put a pillow on top of it, and then I leaned over that and I was like holding on to that, squeezing that real tight. And girl, that needle, I don't know how far, it's a long needle, but I don't even know how far it go up or nothing. I don't know. I just know it went in. You could kind of feel the burning of the medicine, and then it ends up like your whole body is numb, like whole body numb. And they ended up doing a catheter. If you don't know what that is, that's basically like a little tubey situation that they hook to your private area, so you know, because you're not gonna be able to feel yourself when you're using the bathroom. So it's basically to transport pee to a bucket, and if you poo on a bed, then you just use the bathroom on the bed. It was for that. I got that done, and I ended up getting some sleep at that point. Then I woke up to them coming in. Like I said, they was coming in fixing the heart monitor, and then it was like 2 doctors. It was the same nurse from earlier that day, and then it was another nurse came with her, and they started like, you know, trying to put their hands, you know, in the inside and flip her around a little bit. It wasn't saying much at first, but then it was like 2 more doctors came in, then 2 more doctors came in, then my OB came in, and you know, they flipping me around, and I'm on my knees in my, like, basically like this part of my arms, because they you know, got their hand up in there trying to twist her around and stuff, because I didn't know that her umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck until really recently, because I was out of that medicine, and I don't like that, but I didn't even know that. But I knew something was wrong when they was saying the way they was moving me around and stuff like that, and saying how they kept like her heart rate kept disappearing and whatever. Then my OB was like, you know, well, we're gonna have to go, you know, you're gonna have to go in for an emergency C-section. And I boo-hooed some more, because that was another thing that I didn't want to have to go through. They wheeling me out. They had to leave. Hold on, mama. They had to leave my husband in a room so he could get dressed and stuff like that. But they brought me in, and I'm just crying, because like it felt real lonely. I was scared because, for one, you know, around that time it was a lot of cases of black women dying during pregnancy, birth and stuff like that, and I was like, I do not want to go through that. I shouldn't have to, but like, bro, I had so many thoughts in my head, and then on top of not being able to control my body, I ain't like that either. So they got me laying down. They put that brown liquid stuff across my stomach where they was gonna make the incision at, that, you know, it's like a numbing agent. They do that, and at the same time they gave me like more numbing medicine that like numbed my whole body, and it made my heart, like, to me, my heart was beating real fast, and I was feeling a little nauseous, and I started tripping out. I probably was already tripping, and that's why my heart rate was feeling like that. But I was just freaking out. I'm like, bro, y'all, I don't know, something else. You got to give me something else, or what y'all gave me, or something, or you know, like where my husband at, because I need somebody in here to see what's going on. So they doing their thing down there. The doctor, in one of the doctors, or like anesthesiologist or whatever, he in my ear, and he like, you know, you're doing good, you've been doing so good, da 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 da. At that point, the doctors at the bottom, they like, all right, you're gonna feel a lot of pressure. Girl, they pulled her out. I was like, that damn noise, that it was like a whoo. That's what the hell I sound like, because it wasn't pain, but it was a lot of pressure, and I felt that. Like, hell, pressure is pain. I felt that, and then I heard her crying, and I boo-hoo some more. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. Then, you know, they stitching me up and everything. I got some pictures. Girl, I was so swollen. Like, look how I look now compared to that picture. I was all swollen in the face. Nose was all big and stuff. Girl, first of all, I looked like I was darker. Probably because I was in California, though. You know, she's out. They get us together. Sew me back up and, you know, bring us in the room. By me having stitches, I stayed in the hospital for maybe like 4 or 5 days before I left. She passed all her hearing tests and everything like that. Then we went home. And that's the end of my pregnancy journey and labor and delivery. If y'all want to see my postpartum depression and like how I got over it, make sure y'all like this video, leave a comment, let me know what other stuff y'all want to see from me, and I will see y'all in my next videos. Bye.
Reminiscing about the times we had.